On a Monday night in November, 30,000 people in Arlington, Texas stood up and screamed his name. He'd waited his whole life for a moment like this one. A blocked punt, a scoop, a sprint to the end zone in front of a national television audience. Teammates piling on top of him. A season-defining highlight that would run on every sports network in the country the next morning. For days later, he was gone. This is the story of Marshawn Kneeland, a 24-year-old defensive end for the Dallas Cowboys whose death sent a shockwave through the NFL and reopened a conversation the league has been trying and often failing to have for years. What football actually cost the men who play it, long after the cameras stopped rolling. Before he was a Dallas Cowboy, Marshawn Kneeland was just a kid from Michigan with a big frame, a quiet demeanor, and a chip on his shoulder that only people close to him ever really saw. He didn't arrive at Western Michigan as a five-star prospect with recruiters lined up around the block. He arrived as a project, a long, raw athlete who needed development, coaching, and time. And he got all three. Over 4 years in Kalamazoo, that raw athlete turned into one of the most disruptive defensive linemen in the Mid-American Conference, the kind of player NFL scouts started circling on their spring evaluation trips. By his senior season, Kneeland wasn't a project anymore. He was a problem for opposing offensive lines. Long arms, an explosive first step, and a motor that didn't quit on 3rd and long in the fourth quarter of games that didn't matter to anyone outside of Kalamazoo. Except they mattered enormously to him. Every rep was an audition for a life he'd been chasing since he was a kid throwing a football around a Michigan front yard. In February 2024, that audition reached its final stage. The NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis. Cameras on him. Stopwatches on him. A grid of NFL executives with clipboards deciding, in the span of a few seconds of a 40-yard dash, whether the kid from Western Michigan belonged with the best players on earth. He tested well. Not spectacularly, well, good enough that when the 2024 NFL Draft rolled around that April, the Dallas Cowboys, one of the most scrutinized, most valuable, most historically successful franchises in professional sports, called his name in the second round. For a kid from Western Michigan, that phone call is the stuff of movies. A Blue Star franchise. America's team. A locker room with a Super Bowl legacy stitched into every wall. Marshawn Kneeland had made it. Rookie years in the NFL are brutal in ways fans rarely see on Sundays. It's not just the physical toll, it's the mental one. A locker room full of grown men whose starting jobs you're threatening. A playbook the size of a phone book. A coaching staff whose patience runs out fast when jobs, million-dollar contracts, and win-loss records are on the line. Kneeland's rookie season in 2024 wasn't a fireworks show. It was quieter than that. A young defensive end learning the speed of the NFL game, absorbing coaching, and slowly carving out a role in a Cowboys defense trying to find its identity. He played in NFL games. He got real snaps against real professionals. For an undrafted feeling kid a year removed from a MAC school. That alone was an accomplishment plenty of second-round picks never manage. By his second season, in 2025, something had clicked. Coaches started trusting him more. Snap counts climbed. And on a Monday night in early November, Week 9, Cowboys against the Cardinals, Marshawn Kneeland had the signature moment every young defensive player dreams about. He got on a blocked punt, scooped the loose ball, and rumbled into the end zone for his first career NFL touchdown on primetime television in front of millions of viewers. Teammates mobbed him. His phone, by every account, lit up for days afterward. Friends, family, former Western Michigan teammates, all reaching out to celebrate with him. It was, by every outward measure, the best week of his young career. It's important to sit with that for a second, because it's the part of this story that makes what happened next so difficult for the people who loved him to reconcile. There was no visible warning sign in his play, no public struggle, no headline about him before that week that wasn't about football. To the outside world, and even to many people close to him, Marshawn Kneeland's life looked like it was accelerating in exactly the direction he'd always wanted it to go. That's often how it looks from the outside. It rarely tells the whole story of what's happening inside. On the night of November 5th, 2025, the Cowboys by week, with players off the practice field and away from the structure and routine of the team facility. Texas Department of Public Safety troopers attempted to stop a vehicle for a traffic violation. The driver did not stop. What followed was a pursuit that eventually involved the Frisco Police Department, ending when the vehicle crashed. The driver fled the scene on foot. That driver was Marshawn Kneeland. As officers searched for him in the aftermath of the crash, a dispatcher relayed something to the responding units. People who knew Kneeland had received a group text from him that night that sounded like a goodbye. It was, in hindsight, the clearest signal anyone had that he was in the middle of an acute mental health crisis, one that, by all accounts, had not been visible to the people around him the days prior. Early Thursday morning, November 6th, he was found dead of what authorities described as an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. He was 24 years old. The Dallas Cowboys released a statement that morning. It is with extreme sadness that the Dallas Cowboys share that Marshawn Kneeland tragically passed away this morning. Marshawn was a beloved teammate and member of our organization. Our thoughts and prayers regarding Marshawn are with his girlfriend Catalina and his family. His agent, Jonathan Persley, who had represented him since before the draft, described the loss in a statement of his own, calling it a pain I can hardly put into words, and recalling watching Kneeland fight his way from a hopeful kid at Western Michigan with a dream to being a respected professional for the Dallas Cowboys. The NFL issued its own statement within hours. Teams across the league, the Eagles, the Commanders, and others, posted messages of condolence. That weekend, NFL stadiums across the country held a moment of silence before kickoff for a player most fans outside of Dallas had only just learned the name of 4 days after his best moment on a football field. There is no twist to reveal here. No hidden conspiracy, no cover-up, no mystery to solve. What happened to Marshawn Kneeland was, in the plainest and most painful sense, a young man in the grip of a mental health crisis that escalated with terrible speed in the private hours between one of the highest points of his life and the last morning of it. The Cowboys made counseling resources available to players and staff in the aftermath. His family asked, through his agent, for privacy and compassion as they grieved. That request is worth honoring, even here. So instead of speculating about what we can't know, the rest of this video is going to focus on something we can actually examine honestly. The pattern this fits into, and the questions it's forcing the NFL and the people who love the sport to sit with. Marshawn Kneeland's death arrived at a moment when the NFL was already deep into a reckoning it has been slow and at times reluctant to have. In the weeks after his death, it was reported that Kneeland had been diagnosed posthumously with CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, the degenerative brain condition linked to repeated head trauma, one that can currently only be diagnosed after death. CTE has been found in the brains of a long and growing list of former NFL players, from role players to franchise legends, and it has been connected in research to mood disorders, impulse control problems, and in some tragic cases, suicide. It's important to be precise about what that means and doesn't mean. CTE is not a confirmed single cause of any one person's death. Researchers themselves are careful about that distinction because the science is still developing and because mental health crises are almost always the product of many overlapping factors, not one. But the pattern is impossible to ignore at this point. A 2021 study conducted by researchers at Harvard Medical School and the Boston University CTE Center found that NFL players are more than 4 times as likely to develop ALS than men in the general population. Part of a growing body of research connecting the repeated subconcussive impacts of football to long-term neurological harm. What makes Kneeland's case land differently is the timeline. He wasn't a decade removed from football, dealing with the slow accumulation of symptoms that so many retired players have described in painful, generation-defining interviews. He was 24. He was 2 years into his career. He had, by every external measure, everything still in front of him. That's the part of this story that the NFL and its fans are still struggling to sit with. For years, the conversation around football and mental health has largely been framed as a retirement problem, something that happens to players in their 40s, 50s, 60s, long after they've left the game, when the bills come due for a career of collisions. Nealon's death is a brutal reminder that the build doesn't always wait that long, and that a career could be going well by every visible metric. Snap counts up, a touchdown on Monday Night Football, coaches trusting you more, while something serious is happening beneath the surface that nobody sees until it's too late. The NFL has made real changes over the past decade. Every team now has a mental health clinician on staff. There are league-wide protocols for concussions that didn't exist 20 years ago. Players have more access to confidential mental health resources than at any point in league history. The Cowboys, in the hours after Nealon's death, made counseling immediately available to every player, coach, and staff member in the building. But access to help only works if people use it, and if the people around them know how to recognize the moment they need to. That's the harder, messier part of this. Mental health crises don't always look like the slow, visible decline that gets talked about after the fact. Sometimes, by every account of the people who knew him, they can be sudden. Sometimes the person having the best week of their career is the same person quietly falling apart in ways nobody around them can see. That's not a comfortable thing to say. It's also true, and pretending otherwise doesn't protect anyone. In the days after his death, the tributes that came in weren't about statistics. They were about who he was in a locker room. Teammates described a quiet, hard-working presence, someone who never stopped chasing improvement. From a two-star recruit's path at Western Michigan to a second-round pick fighting for reps in one of the most pressure-heavy organizations in professional sports. His agent's words are worth returning to, because they capture something that stat sheets never will. Marshawn poured his heart into every snap, every practice, and every moment on the field. To lose someone with his talent, spirit, and goodness is a pain I can hardly put into words. He is survived by his girlfriend, Catalina, and his family, who asked, in the rawest days of their grief, only for privacy and compassion. That's a request worth extending well past the news cycle. Marshawn Nealon played 2 seasons in the NFL, 18 games, 1 touchdown that will now be remembered for reasons that have nothing to do with football, a career that, on paper, was just getting started. Football measures players in the smallest increments imaginable. A tenth of a second in the 40-yard dash, a half step on a pass rush, 1 block punt that changes a game. It is not built to measure the things that actually decide whether a person survives their own mind. Marshawn Nealon's death isn't a mystery that needs solving. It's a question that the NFL and everyone who loves this sport has to keep asking long after the headlines fade. How many other players are carrying something none of us can see, right up until the week we're celebrating them the loudest? If this video affected you, and you're going through something difficult right now, you don't have to carry it alone. In the United States, you can call or text 988 anytime, day or night, to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. It's free and it's confidential. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. The more people understand the hidden cost of football, the more we can push for better player safety and mental health support.